Hello and welcome to the Herbalisms podcast. I am Loukeisa Denise. This is the show where we discuss everything herb related, how herbs relate to our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, as well as our energetic body. I'm a professional herbalist for over 20 years. I'm also a certified support specialist, fertility support specialist. I have a private practice called Ancient Fertility where I help women and couples who are trying to conceive. I am the owner of Triple Moon Alchemy, Herbal Apothecary, where I am the chief maker. And today's episode is sponsored by Triple Moon Alchemy. Triple Moon Alchemy, as I said, is an online herbal apothecary. We make everything from organic loose leaf teas to vibe sprays. As a matter of fact, let me spray some vibe spray to set the vibe. That smells amazing. And you can find Triple Moon Alchemy products at triplemoonalchemy.com. So I want to get into today's episode, which is titled, if you've already seen it, it is called Start Here. And the reason why I titled it Start Here is because I really want to, with this being the first episode, I'd really like to give you all an idea of my origin story, how I came to be an herbalist, how I came to be a professional herbalist, and what it is that I love most about herbal medicine. I've told this story several times. If you are a regular Triple Moon Alchemy customer, you've probably heard it and you've seen it in Table Magazine interview. You've heard it on other people's radio, but there's a lot of people that are not familiar with it. So I want to get right into it. But I'd like to start with a quote. And this quote really, I feel like, summarizes the idea or the concept of today's episode. Today's quote comes from Vishen Lakhiani, who is the CEO and creator of Mind Valley, if you've ever heard of that. And he says, "Epic things start with small, humble steps. Pay respect to your beginnings as if you were just starting. And if you were just starting out, know that it's okay to be sucky, to be small, to be messy and chaotic. Just make sure to never stop dreaming." And I chose that quote because it really summarizes exactly what my humble beginnings in herbalism were all about. So I'll take you back. As a little girl, I had a grandmother who was a healer. She didn't call herself a healer, but she definitely was a healer. She was an herbalist. And some of my earliest memories were playing outside, scraping my knee, running in the house, crying. And she would go over to this plant that I didn't even know that it was called. Now I know that it was an aloe plant. She'd rip some off, open it up, and this gooiness would be on the leaves. And she'd just take the whole leaf and rub it on my knee. And within seconds, almost, the throbbing would stop, the bleeding would stop, the scrape would not feel, it would almost feel like numb. And then soon I'd be back outside playing. And at the time as a child, I didn't really understand how impactful those times were. It happened several times to the point to where I would then go and grab a piece of the aloe off and take it to her. Do you know what I mean? And not only did those times soothe the cut, but it also, I had very little scarring on my knee as well. But that was my beginnings of understanding the power of plants and the power of plant medicine. And as I grew, I can't say that it's something that I kept with me and that I practiced myself, but it definitely stayed in the back of my mind. So I'll fast forward to being an adult, living in NYC. I lived in New York City for several years. I was a young mom and I had a toddler. And at one particular time when my then 4-year-old son grew ill, just like any other parent, I took him to the ER, took him to see his doctor. He was prescribed a certain medicine. And I diligently gave him that medicine for the amount of days that I was supposed to. I think it was an antibiotic. And he still hadn't gotten better. And I lived in New York City alone with my child. I didn't have my grandmother to go to her and say, this is what's happening, what can we do? I didn't have my mom to say, this is what's happening, what can we do? And I was very distraught. And I remember I lived around the corner from a natural food store. And I went in there one day just very down because I wanted my son to feel better. And I ended up having a conversation with one of the salespeople that worked there. And I explained to her what was going on, and she walked me to an aisle and she showed me all these different things and told me all these things. Now, as she's telling me this, some things I'm like, oh, my grandmother, I remember her mentioning that, or this is, some of that natural healing that my grandmother would talk about. And so I was very already primed, and she's explaining these things to me. And at that point, I'm desperate. I'm like, give me whatever, because I've been trying this antibiotic and these other things and it's not working. And we stood in that aisle and she was so patient with me. We stood there for what felt like forever. And I left with maybe just 2 or 3 things. But they were herbalism. They were herb-based. They were homeopathic. And I went home right away and started to administer these things to my son. And within 3 days, he was almost 100% better, at least 90% better. And we stopped the course of antibiotics, and that was so eye-opening for me. And most of all, it was very empowering. You have to realize I was a young person and did not feel like I had a lot of autonomy. Right, I'm going to the doctors. I need for them to tell me what to do. I need to be validated from some outside source to feel empowered enough, or to do what they tell me to do to feel empowered. But here was a situation to where I walked myself into this health food store. I was taught what things to administer. I came home, I administered, and I saw results. And that was all that I needed. Especially because I was already a child who had been primed in that way. And so for me, that began my studies, my independent studies with herbalism and with natural healing. I, over time, would go into the kitchen. I learned things. I go into the kitchen and figure out, okay, although I use this herb in cooking, but I'm learning that this is something that is actually medicine. This oregano that I'm using to spice up my chicken, I can actually use this medicinally. This rosemary that I'm using to spice up my beef, I can use this medicinally. And all these things really were impactful. So I was off and running. I felt extremely empowered. And at that time, I was never thinking about having an herbal business. It was just really about, oh my goodness, I have the power to, heal my son and potentially heal myself. And then that grew. I'm already someone who loves to read. I became voracious, just taking down herb books and information and everything that I could. I went back to that health food store, became friends with that lady, and just talked about so many things over time. And before I knew it, years had passed and I had amassed this kind of education. So by the time I moved back to Pittsburgh, and my family had begun to realize, oh, she's into that natural stuff. Oh, she does this, she does that. And at first they would clown me, but then over time, they would be the very people calling me. This happened to me. What do you think I should do? I'm feeling ill in this way. What do you think I should take? And it just grew to me becoming the family herbalist. And then over the years, then those family members would talk to their friends and neighbors. And then I became the community herbalist. So I'm saying all this because we all have to start somewhere. I didn't come out of the gate with the amount of knowledge that I have. And don't get me wrong, the knowledge is continual. As long as I have breath, I will continue to learn. There are herb elders that I look, to professional herbalists, to local herbalists that I look to for insight and for information. And as I grow as an elder, so will my information or my knowledge. And we all have to begin somewhere. Some people go right into, I want to be a herbalist, so I want to go out and I want to forage and learn that way. I want to identify plants. Others are like, I have to take this course, or I want to be an apprentice. Wherever you are on your journey is the perfect place for you to begin. If you are motivated by a personal health situation, a health scare, or a family member, I feel like that is a great motivation, because if you are like me, you want to help your family, you want to help yourself. But a lot of people look at herbalism and think, I'm not an herbalist because I didn't do XYZ. You're an herbalist because you love herbs. You're an herbalist because you want to learn more about herbalism. You don't need a title. You don't need a certification. You don't need any of those things. Those are great to have as a professional herbalist, someone that has an apothecary. It was important to me to have certain certifications, to have certain knowledge backing me, certain accredited knowledge, if you will. But trust me, you don't need any of those things to really love herbs and want to understand them more. So again, the reason why this is titled Start Here, because I want you to start wherever you are. Here is the perfect place for you. Okay, so let's just recap really quickly. Herbalism is about starting where you are, starting with what you have. That's the moral of the whole story that I just told. I gave you insight into my story. Now it's time for you to write your story. And so I have a challenge for you. Whichever herbs you have at home now, whether you have culinary herbs in the kitchen, whether you have herbs that you've bought from the store, bulk herbs, packaged herbs, whatever you have, if you are someone who is at home and you've been looking at these herbs and you want to create with them, but you don't know what to create, I am challenging you to do anything with them. Make a tea, make an infused oil, make a tincture. I want you to be motivated to actually make something. Triple Moon Alchemy, that word alchemy is very, very important, that we alchemize, right? It's not enough to have the herbs, to have them around you, to look at them. Now it's time to create that alchemy. It's time to create something for yourself, something that you can be proud of, something that you and the people in your house can utilize. I want you to be safe, but I want you to make something. Alchemize those herbs that you have. Now is the time to take that step. Lastly, I want you to check out Triple Moon Alchemy and triplemoonalchemy.com and check out the website. See if there's anything there that you enjoy, anything that you can utilize, any inspiration that you can get. And that's pretty much it for this episode. Make sure you come back. Hit me up on Instagram. Triple Moon Alchemy is on Instagram at Triple Moon Alchemy. Let me know. Give me some feedback. Let me know how you like it. Make sure you come back next month where I will have a guest and we'll be talking about growing herbs. We will be talking about that aspect of actually growing, harvesting, drying herbs. That's a big part of what I do with Triple Moon Alchemy, and I'd love to introduce you to that. I'd love to talk more about what it is to actually grow the herbs that you want to utilize, but don't let that stop anyone. You don't have to grow the herbs. There are plenty of places, and we'll also talk about resources, herbal resources, where you can find small farms and local places and not local places, the big box stores, all the way down to small farms where you can get responsibly harvested organic herbs to use in your herbal preparations. So that's it for the Herbalisms podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, be sure to put them down in the comments section. Follow me over on Instagram at Triple Moon Alchemy. And if you like the video, like it, make sure to share it, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next episode. This is a podcast that will be recorded every month, so make sure that you come back. Thanks for watching. Peace.